Search operations for the Seoul passenger ferry continue. Still some 90 people remain missing with investigations ongoing into what caused it and who is responsible. As the nation mourns the loss of lives from the ferry disaster, domestic economic activity has dropped, with many voicing concerns of the after effects. Senior citizens now account for more than 12% of the population, and there are calls for revised measures for traffic and road safety tailored to the aging society. Ilsan district in the city of Goyang, just northwest of Seoul and growing with popular attractions. It is the place to be, and you'll see why with Joey Mercadante on Korea Today, Thursday, May 1st, 2014.
From Arirang News, this is Korea Today.
Good to have you with us on Korea Today on this Thursday morning. I'm Oh Jun-ju alongside Kim Min-jung and Kim Young.
And on Wednesday, the surviving students from Danon High School, they had a chance to visit the joint memorial altar for their fellow students who died on the ferry.
Right, the memorial hall was filled with tears of the students that lost their fellow students, most of their classmates in this tragic ferry incident.
The surviving students dressed up in their uniforms, in school uniforms, and these are students, these are friends. They were on the same boat when it started sinking. I'm sure they were laughing and joking around before the ship started sinking, and to see their faces of their friends just and paying tribute to their friends, it must have been really, really difficult for them. I'm sure most of them are traumatized by this experience, and they will get some psychological therapy offered by the Education Ministry as well as the Gyeonggi Provincial Office of Education. In the meantime, search operations continue for the 16th day since a passenger ferry sank off the southwestern coast of Korea near Chindo Island. Still, some 90 people remain unaccounted for. Now, amid concerns of bodies drifting away in swift currents, on Wednesday, a fisherman discovered a body with a life jacket on some 2 kilometers away from the accident site. The body, believed to be from the sunken ship, has since been handed over to the search team. In the meantime, the head of the country's Coast Guard has apologized for what many criticize as being a delayed response.
As the man in charge of maritime relief operations, I humbly accept the outcry that a swift and efficient rescue didn't take place in the initial stages. I feel deeply responsible for the delayed search operations and the confusion that ensued.
Also on Wednesday, families of the victims of the sunken Cheonanham warship in 2010 visited the Chindo Gymnasium, volunteering to help the families of those still waiting to hear news about their loved ones on the ill-fated ferry.
As investigations continue into the capsizing of the Seoul ferry, officials are expanding the scope of the probe, adding more suspects to their list each day. 2 more arrests have been made involving Cheongjin Marine Company's logistics team leader Kim and director An, name withheld. They have been taken into custody for suspected manslaughter and violation of ship safety by overloading the ferry. Investigations also indicate that a crew member raised the issue of overloading the ferry on the day of the accident, but a Cheongjin employee dismissed this concern. Separately, the Board of Audit and Inspection is looking into the Maritime Ministry, the Ministry of Security and Public Administration, the Korea Coast Guard, and the Korea Maritime and Port Administration. Auditors will investigate whether these agencies took appropriate measures in the face of the recent disaster, and also if it had proper safety management systems in place for passenger ships.
Also in the news, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says his country's approach on resolving historical disputes with neighboring countries is different from that of Germany. When asked by German daily Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung about calls on Japan to learn from Germany in taking on wartime responsibilities, the Japanese leader said Tokyo has signed a peace treaty with its neighbors after the war, setting guidelines for compensation and providing development assistance to less developed Asian countries. Abe added while Japan still has difficult matters to settle with its neighboring countries, the door for dialogue is open and that those countries must engage in dialogue without set conditions. The Prime Minister also said the world will be gravely affected if stability and freedom in Asia is threatened, alluding to China's recent moves to expand its military presence in the Asia-Pacific region, according to the paper.
It was earlier this year when a taxi driver in his 80s crashed into the front door of a hotel in Seoul, injuring 4 people and causing nearly $500,000 in damage. The police concluded the accident was caused by negligence of the driver, with senior citizens aged 65 and older now accounting for more than 12% of the total population in Korea as of last year. There are calls to revise measures for traffic and road safety. For more, we connect live to our Kim Chan-ju. Chan-ju, so tell us more about your story.
Good morning, Jinju. As Korea is becoming a rapidly aging society, elderly drivers are also increasing, which has a higher risk of being involved in an accident. If I could share some figures, the number of traffic accidents by elderly drivers stood at 7,000 in 2006, and that number jumped to 16,000 in 2012, which is almost a twofold increase in 6 years. So I went out to find out the various measures taken by the government to prevent traffic accidents by elderly drivers. So let's take a look. As an aging society, Korea has been seeing an increase in the number of elderly drivers. It was at 320,000 in 2012, and that peaked to 400,000 in 2013. This includes elderly taxi or commercial truck drivers as well. In Gyeonggi-do province, an express bus running on the bus-only lane was involved in an accident late at night. The bus driver was at his 70s. Experts say there is a higher risk of elderly drivers in their 70s and older getting involved in accidents on the road.
The reason we're seeing a rapid increase in accidents caused by elderly drivers is because their physical and cognitive abilities deteriorate, and it's more difficult to respond to the various changes on the roads. The accidents are mostly from unintended mistakes rather than intentional traffic violations.
The Road Traffic Act classifies drivers as 65 years or older as elderly drivers and require them to renew their driver's license every 5 years compared to every 10 years for regular drivers. Korea is not the only country faced with a growing number of elderly drivers. In the US, the renewal period for driver's license is shorter and they're required to participate in education programs. In neighboring Japan, a voluntary license return system has been in place since 1998 for the elderly, and they're obligated to put up a sign on their vehicles. Korea has put out various measures recognizing this as a social issue.
이거는 지각 거리를 측정하는 검사인데요. 들리시나요? 어르신들이 운전을 하실 때 주의력과 관련된 검사를 하는 겁니다.
A free safety education program for older drivers is available at various branches of the Korea Road Traffic Authority, mainly consisting of tests for distance recognition and driving theory classes. Yu Young-bok, a 73-year-old driver, says he recognized physical changes as he became older and decided to take part in the program.
As I get older, it's difficult to make decisions, and I'm slower in my physical responses when driving. I sometimes need to deal with dangerous situations, but it's difficult compared to when I was younger.
Police stations in the country are also making efforts to reduce traffic accidents by visiting transport companies or senior citizen centers to give talks on road safety.
One of the main causes of traffic accidents by elderly drivers is the environmental factor. such as when it's at night or raining or snowing, so we try to visit them regularly to offer video education programs in order to prevent future accidents.
Also, another measure proposed is to encourage older drivers to use so-called silver mark stickers to encourage younger drivers to be more considerate on the road.
As drivers get older, there should be aptitude tests to determine whether it is safe for them to drive. And according to the results, they should adjust the period leading up to their license renewal and also introduce education programs. There also need to be more roads and traffic systems that accommodate the elderly.
So regular education programs that provide elderly drivers with real-life situations on the road seem to be crucial. And Chenju, I hear that it's not just the drivers, but an increasing number of elderly pedestrians are involved in car accidents. Tell us more about that.
Yes, Ginger, it's not just the elderly drivers, but also pedestrians who should be a little bit more extra cautious on the road. And as you get older, you experience gradual decline in physical abilities in areas like flexibility and reflex, and also an ability to recognize unexpected situations on the road. Therefore, the road safety education is the reminder for them to be a little bit more aware of the situations around them when they're crossing the road. In addition, 35.9% of traffic accidents were made by aged population last year, which brings all the more importance for them to receive road safety education in a regular basis. Jinju?
It seems that setting up practical measures for the aging population and creating an understanding among other drivers will be important rather than simply blocking the elderly from getting behind the wheel. Thank you, Chenju, for that report. That was our Kim Chenju reporting live from Seoul District.
Good morning. Let's run through the front pages of your newspapers. And yesterday, Danon High School students who were rescued from the Seoul Ferry disaster offered their condolences at a joint altar in Ansan Hwarang Park in Gyeonggi-do Province. Let's go ahead and look at that top story here on 동아일보. And it's the one in the middle here, and the headline says, "Why do we have to part? Why?" Now, 70 sophomores of Danon High School that made it out of the sinking ferry were overwhelmed with emotion yesterday at a joint memorial altar while passing an array of photographs of their fellow students who didn't survive through the tragedy. They made this trip to the altar as a group after being discharged from a hospital where they were being treated for physical and mental injuries sustained during their escape. And scooting on over to 중앙일보, we'll have a look at the top headline here. And it says it's actually coming from some of the former government ministers from previous administrations giving their advice on how the government should or could remodel itself. It reads, "Give ministers more power and let them take responsibility." Now, these words are in response to President Park Geun-hye's statement made the day before yesterday that she would completely banish practices of bureaucratic mafia. And if you take a look at the sub-headline, it says that the advisors mentioned that a remodeling of the state must begin with the reshuffling of its personnel. For instance, the former head of the State Affairs Committee, Lee Won-jong, during former President Kim Young-sam's administration, said in order to push for strong reforms in the whole government system, the president must choose ministers who have a sense of responsibility and give them the right to take that responsibility when performing their duty. And moving to Gyeongyang Shinmun, we'll take a look at this story separately. And the headline says, during 7 phone calls, only concerns about the ship, no talks about rescue. According to the paper, the Joint Investigation Headquarters said there were 7 phone calls made between Cheonghaejin Marine Company and the crew members at the time when the ferry was sinking. And yet there was only talk about the situation of the sinking vessel, why the accident had occurred, and the state that the ship was in, instead of any talk on the passengers or the need for their rescue. Moving on to another domestic issue here on the Korea Economic Daily, and it's the one below that image here. Excuse me. We'll take a look at this one. And the headline says, government plans to banish exclusive right to passenger ship routes. Now, the story reports that the government is enforcing measures to reform the general structure of the coastal shipping business. In particular, it plans to change the monopolistic system of the exclusive right to sailing routes into a competitive structure. Moreover, the government plans to support funds to replace worn-out vessels in order to modernize the vessels. Now, if we take a look at this graph separately, the bar chart here, it shows the number of the worn-out vessels, and 42 of them have been operating for 21 years or more. A majority of 63 of the vessels, they are between the ages of 16 and 20. Now, that makes it a total of 173 of the ships that are very worn out, as only 20 of them are below the age of 5 or at the age of 5. And let's finally go on to the Mail Business newspaper and have a look at this story to the side. I mentioned yesterday about the Daily having held interviews with key figures at the annual Milken Institute Global Conference that is currently being held in Los Angeles. And this headline is what renowned political scientist Francis Fukuyama has said regarding Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Now, the headline says, Fukuyama says Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's denial of wartime sex slaves is quote-unquote stupid. Now, he said in the interview that at a time when Japan should be trying to become Korea's close ally for the stability of Northeast Asia, as well as to keep China in check, the lack of acknowledgement and awareness of history by Abe is making things impossible. And that was a look at your newspaper headlines for this Thursday. And coming up are the stock numbers from Wednesday.
For the most part, yesterday we had great weather around the peninsula, and today is Labor Day. Many people may be wondering what the weather will be like.
For a closer look at the weather conditions for today, we'll turn to Chun Sung-cho, who joins us from outdoors. Good morning to you, Sung-cho.
Good morning.
Good morning, guys. We start the first day of May off with some great weather across the peninsula. Though it's been cloudy with on and off rain for the past couple of days, the outside conditions feel surprisingly pleasant at the moment. This is all thanks to a high-pressure system over Jeju, all the way down south of the peninsula, even off the southwestern coast near Jindo Island, where the search operations continue around the sunken ferry. The weather conditions are looking mild with relatively clear skies and weak winds. So as far as the weather's concerned, it seems like the spring tides, which create strong currents, are the remaining major concerns for the underwater search efforts. Now for today's forecast in the rest of the peninsula, let's take a closer look. Today looks like a clear sunny day nationwide, except for in the Gyeongsang-do provinces, where some clouds and even scattered drizzles are expected in the morning. Starting today, warm air will continuously blow from the high-pressure system in the southwest, which I mentioned earlier, causing the temperatures to rise slightly higher than before. Seoul's highs are 23, Daegu the warmest at 25, and Jeju the coolest at 20 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow again calls for some rain in the afternoon in the central region around Seoul due to a low-pressure system in the north, so you might want to keep that in mind as well. This has been Chun Sung-cho with today's weather update.
Time for a look through our global headlines now. For that, we connect live to our Eunice Kim, who joins us from the news center. Morning, Eunice.
Good morning, Min-jung.
Let's begin with news out of China this morning. An attack at a train station has killed 3 people. Tell us more.
Right, that railway station was in the Urumqi region, which is the capital of the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. Now, Xinhua News Agency reports that there were several explosions and knife-wielding mobs slashing people near the exit. It happened around 7 o'clock last night, local time, and as you said, 3 people were killed, 79 others were injured. The station did reopen 2 hours later, though, as Chinese President Xi Jinping, who was in the region, vowed decisive actions against the, quote, terrorists behind the attack. China's northwestern region has been tense and besieged by violence as Islamist separatists have been calling for an independent state called East Turkestan. And let's turn now to an update on the ongoing search for Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. 2 Bangladeshi ships have been sent into the Bay of Bengal to investigate possible debris of the missing jetliner. This after the Australia-based private marine survey company GeoResonance had said it found evidence of metals in the Bay of Bengal, just south of Bangladesh and several thousand kilometers away from the search site. Australian officials leading the search have downplayed the company's claim, saying it's not consistent with satellite data. It has been nearly 2 months since the Malaysia airliner disappeared on March 8th, carrying 239 people on board. And despite weeks of searching the ocean floor, there is still no confirmed sign of the plane.
It's been more than 50 days and still no closure for the awaiting families. Well, checking in with the U.S. Federal Reserve, the monetary policy setting body just wrapped up their meeting this morning, I believe, and they're on track with scaling back their quantitative easing program, right?
On track indeed. The Federal Open Market Committee announced its 4th reduction this morning. It cut its monthly bond purchases, that is, by another $10 billion to the tune of $45 billion. And also monthly mortgage-backed securities will be scaled back to $20 billion from $25 billion. The Fed also kept its benchmark rates unchanged, keeping it low between 0 and 0.25%. It reiterated that the tapering will continue as long as the economy continues to show improvement. And that's a wrap of the global headlines we're following this morning.
And still to come on Korea Today, consumer spending has been slumping as the country continues to mourn the loss of many in the recent Ferry disaster. We take a look at the domestic market and which areas have been hit the hardest during this difficult time.
And it is the first day of May, which means that summer is right around the corner. And there are those summer blockbusters that lie up ahead. And Im Yoon-hee joins us with a few preludes to these summer blockbusters. Good morning.
Good morning, Young. So do you remember the movie Jaws?
Yes, I'm surprised you know the movie Jaws.
Right, so Jaws was actually one of the first movies to actually be referred to as a blockbuster. And back then, the reason it was called a blockbuster was because of the audience response, just a huge response. But nowadays, blockbusters is really used as a term to define movies that's aimed at a mass audience and is given a high budget. And so recently, some Korean blockbusters have been released here in Korea. They're expected to open the summer season. So let's take a look at some of the blockbusters that they're putting out right now. So let's start with the first movie. It's called The Fatal Encounter. Now, some are referring to it as King's Wrath, but this movie is set in the Joseon Dynasty. Now, it's based upon the real-life event of the assassination attempt of King Jeongjo, who's played by heartthrob Hyun Bin. The movie starts just a year into his reign, and as he undergoes political opposition and dangers, his most trusted servant, Sang-chek, is also the childhood friend of one of the country's deadliest assassins, Hal-soo, who's played by actor Cho Jung-seok. Now, the villain receives the order to kill the king within 24 hours or be killed himself. And while he does successfully infiltrate the palace, he then falls in love with a beautiful palace servant, resulting in a thriller that's sure to keep the audience members on the edge of their seats with this star-studded cast.
And it looks very suspenseful, set in a traditional theme. We're talking about a historical movie. It requires the actors to take on a different persona, which is rather exciting. So tell us a little bit more about this and the costumes as well.
Right, so it's set in the Joseon Dynasty, so the costumes become quite interesting here. I've heard that actors really enjoy donning costumes from different eras, particularly the Joseon Dynasty, but the action scenes are very hands-on as well with these kinds of movies.
Okay, so the first movie, it takes place in a different era in the past, and now you have another movie that you want to introduce our viewers to, and it takes place in the present.
Right, so there's another Korean blockbuster that is recently released. Now, this second one takes place in the present time, but it's also just as exciting with high expectations. So let's take a look at the second movie. Now, this movie is called The Target and is another action-packed thriller. It features actor Ryu Seung-young, who plays a character, Yeohoon. Actor Lee Jin-wook also plays a medical resident named Taejun, and the two get involved in a violent chase that includes murders, kidnappings, and endless action scenes. Now, the movie involved months of training for the actors, and the result is a steady stream of high-impact scenes that is sure to get the audience going. Now, it's originally based on the 2010 French film Point Blank, but this movie and the spin-off of this version is expected to get the audience going and hopefully will boost the Korean movie industry.
Okay, well, there's two exciting movies, obviously, but this later one. Now, Ryu Seung-young, he's been acting for a very long time, quite some time, and now he's like the A-list actor. So the movie industry has seen sort of a slump, especially as of late with the summer blockbusters, the blockbuster movies from the Hollywood that have been taken over. So what about this slump?
Right,
what do you think this can do?
A few of these Hollywood movies like Frozen and the recently released Captain America, they have really been kind of holding their places on top of the blockbuster list or top of the movie list. And so they're expecting these Korean blockbusters with the star-studded cast and actually very exciting plot lines. They're hoping this will kind of give a boost to the Korean movie industry here.
And since these are big name blockbuster films, I'm pretty sure it'll be available at a theater near you. But when?
So actually, they were both released yesterday. So right after the show, you can go check out both of the movies in the theaters.
All right, I'm not sure about watching two movies in the same day, but anyhow, thank you for the information, Uni.
My pleasure.
Thank you for joining us. And still ahead on Korea Today. Now, the Ilsan district has been growing into a lot of fanfare, many people visiting the area, and May is the perfect month to head out to get some fresh air in that area. We'll take you to Ilsan, close from Seoul and packed with fun. Enjoy the beauty of 100 million flowers and festivities all in Ilsan.
Now, the country is mourning the loss of lives from the ferry tragedy, and this is spilling over to the domestic economy as well. The country has been almost at a standstill, with many public institutions, companies, and schools deciding to cancel events and activities, and consumers are not loosening their purse strings either.
They're not. Domestic spending was up as the nation entered the year of 2014. However, with the ferry disaster, things have changed. Let's take a look at what kind of an impact the ferry sinking incident could have on the domestic economy.
This year in Korea, the month of May comes with the Golden Holiday weekend. But following the recent Seoul ferry tragedy, consumer spending has dipped dramatically. The first field to be hit is the travel and tourism industry. Especially companies dealing with sea travels are experiencing extreme difficulty.
We're receiving more cancellation calls than reservations. If we had 100 reservations last year ahead of the holiday weekend, right now we're only getting 10 to 20.
The recent accident has also affected businesses on the street. Normally, these restaurants would have been filled with hungry customers, but ever since the ferry disaster, those numbers have drastically dropped.
It's not just my restaurant. All the other eateries have seen a drastic drop in the number of customers. Our tables are all empty.
I've been waiting for customers for 30 minutes. There are absolutely no customers.
Ticket sales at movie theaters have also seen a sharp 32% drop compared to the year before. And various distribution and retailers like department stores as well as TV home shopping networks have also seen a noticeable drop in their sales figures.
With the whole country in a state of mourning, our company has canceled many business dinners. And I'm also limiting the number of my personal appointments as well.
Especially, reports show that credit card company sales, recognized as one of the representative indicators of consumer activity, tumbled a staggering 9% in the last 5 days.
For a while, it looks like domestic consumers will limit their spending habits as the nation is still under much distress from the recent Ferry disaster. In return, such reserve consumption will most likely lower the second quarter economic growth rate.
With the Seoul Ferry tragedy, consumers have shut their wallets, leading to a slowdown in the domestic market. And this is not a phenomenon unique to Korea. In the US, September retail figures shrunk by 2.4% in 2001, the lowest in 9 years after the September 11 terrorist attack. Japan's economic growth also suffered when the country was devastated with massive earthquakes back in April to June of 2011.
We have seen consumer spending drastically drop after major disasters, and as the Seoul Ferry tragedy brought tremendous psychological and emotional agony and distress to the whole country, we expect this negative spending trend to last for a longer period.
What's more worrisome is the fact that this so-called Seoul shock occurred at a time when Korea's economy was experiencing gradual but yet apparent growth. In January, the Consumer Sentiment Index reached 109, the highest in the last 3 years. Also, this year's first quarter economic growth also reached 3.9%, topping records from the last 3 years. In the midst of the ferry disaster aftermath, experts advise that the government devise and implement regulatory economic reforms to boost the domestic economy. In order for the country to get back on track with its growth cycle, many believe the government should ensure this trend does not continue on.
As we saw, the ferry tragedy is having an impact on the domestic economy. And to tell us more about this, we're joined by Professor Yang Jun-seok from the Catholic University of Korea. Welcome to the program.
Good morning,
Thank
Professor.
you for having me.
Now, consumers are obviously not in the mood to spend money, whether it be shopping or going out to enjoy themselves. And retail stores have been hit hard, and with their sales going down, especially in the following weeks. How bad is the situation right now?
Okay, right now we're probably at or near the worst point of falling consumption, just because there's a lot of people are just not in the mood to spend anything. There will probably be somewhat of a recovery in a few weeks as people start to sort of get over this tragedy. And a lot of these purchases have been delayed. For example, you might need a new refrigerator, but you don't feel like going out for shopping because of all this tragedy. Well, you'll eventually have to get that refrigerator sooner or later. So there will be sort of a bounce back. But this will definitely affect the second quarter GDP results, maybe even the third quarter. But unless the political situation really worsens a lot, I don't see it going further than that.
You talked about the GDP, but foreign investment banks are taking note of Korea's GDP growth rate of 3.9% for the first quarter of this year, which is 0.1 percentage point higher than the previous projection. Now, some analysts are saying that the government should make a downward revision of the Korean economy's growth outlook. What's your thought about that?
I think it's a bit too early. We need to look at the actual numbers, not only for the April, but May and June before I think we get serious about revising the numbers. Well, the first quarter, we had a relatively good facility construction investment. Actually, that was the biggest reason why we had higher than expected GDP growth. And the construction growth, at least for the last couple of years, have been somewhat unstable. So we need to take a look at those numbers as well as consumption numbers and the export figures to really see whether we need to revise it downward. The IMF had expected the Korean growth to be 3.7% this year. They said, I think last week, that they don't really see a reason to revise it yet. On the other hand, some of the Korean research institutes have been revising their numbers downwards, partially because of this consumption fall, but also partially because of other factors, mostly the exchange rate. So this will definitely be a negative shock, but looking over the year as a whole, it will probably not be the worst negative shock.
So you think the impact will be limited at what this Seoul Ferry incident has on the overall economy?
Let me give, with a strong caveat, the political repercussion will be somewhat small, minimal. If the political repercussions grow and the policy uncertainty grows, especially in economic policy, then we may get a different picture.
Now, what kind of initiatives are needed to be taken in order for the government to boost the depressed economy, if you will? And the Goldman Sachs has predicted that the Bank of Korea won't lower interest rate in the wake of this tragedy. And what kind of measures should be taken in dealing with the situation?
Okay, well, typically, if the story that we had earlier, they mentioned what happened in 9/11. And I remember in 9/11, Mayor Rudy Giuliani said New York has to get back to normality. Well, the problem is back during that 9/11, Rudy Giuliani was seen as a strong leader. He led the recovery efforts, so he had the moral authority to say that. Right now in Korea, we don't have really anybody with that kind of moral authority. So in terms of trying to say, well, let's get over this because of the negative economic effect, I don't think there's anybody who has the moral effect to say that right now. So I think at least from that side, I think the government should remain quiet. But on the economic policy, try to divide the tragedy-related policies and economic-related policies, and government should show that we do have a very strong, effective economic policy leadership in place.
And before we wrap up, you already mentioned a bit about this, but how long do you think the ripple effect from the Seoul Ferry incident will linger on the Korean economy?
Okay, as I said, if this does not blow up into a big political crisis, probably 3 months. But if this causes not only the social side of the government to weaken, but also the economic policy side of the government to weaken as well, the effect will probably last longer. But I think the correct way to go about this is not try to ignore that effect, but use this opportunity to show that we will make new policies. We will make sure that this will never happen again, so that we could give more confidence in the government's ability to govern.
Okay. Well, thank you, Professor, for your time this morning and sharing your insight with us. It was very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As we mentioned earlier, today is Labor Day, and this means many workers in Korea and around the world will have this day off. Today, the stock markets and banks will be closed.
Right, but that doesn't apply to us, unfortunately. But it kept many online users excited yesterday. Let's go over to our Seoul Misorang at the digital room for more. Misorang, fill us in.
Good morning. A variety of topics were trending online yesterday, ranging from sports and entertainment to politics and national holiday. So let's get started and see which 5 were trending online. Chun Ji-yeon's real name gets attention again, while her drama My Love from the Star is plagiarized into a non-authorized Indonesian remake. Many looked up details on Labor Day today, as well as yesterday's TV debate between the Seoul mayor candidates from the Saenuri party. Meanwhile, video screenshots of baseball player Park Yong-gun sliding into home quickly gained a lot of clicks because the batter was still swinging. Now let's go back to the first listing there, and the one about Chun Ji-yeon's real name. The quirky beauty from My Sassy Girl, North Korean translator in the Berlin Files, celebrity Chun Song-hee in My Love from the Star. We know the beautiful actress with that trademark long hair as Chun Ji-hyun. But as some of you may already know, she wasn't born with that name. Her birth name is Wang Ji-hyun, Chun Ji-hyun being her stage name. This was once again brought to people's attention when the Korean Red Cross announced yesterday that they received just under $100,000 under her legal name of Wang Ji-hyun. And the donations were made toward relief efforts in the Seoul ferry disaster. Moving on to our next issue, today is Labor Day here in Korea, and there was some confusion online yesterday regarding which organizations are open, which are not, as well as the legality surrounding the issue of unpaid leave. So let's take a look. The Korean Labor Day is designated legal holiday, but not a public holiday. The two are upheld by different laws and therefore hold different implications. During legal holidays such as Labor Day today, regular or permanent workers must legally be given paid leave, or if they do work, they must be given an extra 50% of the day's wage or be allowed to take paid leave on another day. However, the law excludes public sector organizations and non-regular workers, such as part-time and casual or freelance workers. Meanwhile, during public holidays such as the upcoming Children's Day and Buddha's birthday, those working in the public sector are legally guaranteed paid leave. But for those in the private sector, well, that's dependent on your individual contract terms. As for what's open and what's not today, the stock market and banks are definitely closed, but general hospitals and public institutions such as schools and community service centers are open. Whether you're working today as we are or taking a well-deserved break, everyone please take care. I'll be back with more updates tomorrow.
Now, it's been over 2 weeks since the tragic Seoul ferry accident, with many passengers still missing. And while many athletes have been donating money to help out the victims and those affected by the accident, Park Ji-sung is stepping up by hosting a tribute football match in July. According to Park's father, who helps run the JS Foundation, they have decided to host a tribute match here in the nation in July to pay tribute to those that lost their lives in the tragic accident and to help out those who were affected by the tragedy. And with the K-League All-Star Game taking place in July as well, Park's father added that it would be great if the league joined hands with the foundation and make this tribute match possible. And staying with football, with the 2014 Brazil World Cup just around the corner, Reuters made their predictions regarding the South Korean national football team. And according to the article, the Taeguk Warriors must improve their game and play better than they did during the qualifiers. They also predict that it'll be tough for them to advance to the round of 16, but it's possible as long as they play well against Algeria and Russia. Meanwhile, they chose Son Heung-min as the key player on the roster and should be able to fill the void left by Park Ji-sung. And now moving over to some Wednesday night's KBO action, the Lotte Giants win one over the Hanwha Eagles 6-4, with the Kia Tigers being the SK Wyverns 6-3, and the Tucson Bears dominated the Nexen Heroes 7-1. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the red-hot NC Dinos take on the struggling LG Twins. And of course, going into the game here, a scoreless game until the fourth inning of the game. Eric Thames with an RBI single to right gives NC Dinos the 1-0 lead. Next inning here is Park Yong-taek. Grounds one to short, but an E4 source Chae Kyung-chul from second, and we have a tie ball game 1-1. But next play, here's Josh Bell, and there it goes, a two-run shot over the right field wall, and the Twins take a 3-1 lead. Eighth inning down 4-1, Lee Ho-jun an RBI single to right, and it's 4-2. Next batter, Eric Thames once again. This time an RBI double scores Na Sung-bum, and it's 4-3. Next play, Chi-seok Kun at bat sends one to center field. A sac fly ties the ball game 4-4. But the ninth inning of the game, with men on second, pinch hitter Lee Byung-gyu singles up the middle, and that's the winning run as the LG Twins take this game 5-4. And staying in baseball, but over in the majors, where Chu Shin-soo, who signed a 7-year, $130 million deal with the Texas Rangers during the past offseason, is making sure he's worth every single dollar. And of course, as the leadoff hitter, the most important thing is to get on base, and he's doing plenty of that as he's currently leading the American League in on-base percentage as a leadoff hitter with .452 as of Tuesday. At the same time, he's also fourth in slugging percentage amongst the leadoff hitters at .500 even. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Today is Labor Day, May 1st, and it is for some people the start of this golden holiday. For others, it begins on Saturday. But regardless, Joey Mercadante is here joining us today to tell you some of the places to go. Good morning, Joey.
Good morning. Yeah, it's good to be back. Today I'll take you to Ilsan in Goyang City, Gyeonggi-do Province, which is very close to Seoul, not far at all.
That's right.
Here, along with all sorts of entertaining venues and delicious eateries, diverse flowers are in full bloom, and this is what is really attracting thousands of tourists, families and friends, and me to Ilsan. So without any further ado, let's have a closer look at Ilsan and my colorful adventures there. May is the perfect month to head out on a trip with families and friends. And you don't always have to venture out too far from Seoul. Take a 1-hour subway ride on Line 3 and you'll be in Ilsan. Ilsan is known as a dynamic suburban area where art and culture coexist.
Wow,
Also,
it's beautiful.
where people can enjoy shopping, diverse cultural performances. Rain or shine, there's always something fun to do here in Korea. And now that it's springtime, it's time to enjoy nature, the gifts, and the beauty that nature has to offer. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. So follow me and let's have a look at what nature has to offer. Come on, let's go.
It must have been drizzling when you went there, huh?
Yeah,
It's an
just a little
outdoor
bit of rain.
space, right?
Yes. Right now, Ilsan Lake Park is dotted with 100 million flowers and plants for the 2014 International Horticulture Fair. This year marks the 24th anniversary of the festival. And this year, out of respect for the victims of the recent ferry accident, the event is being carried out in a calmer atmosphere, focusing more on attracting foreign flower buyers and exporters. This flower fair, by introducing 170 kinds of new hybrid flowers and plants made with Korean horticulture technology, has brought in about 20 million
I have to go
US
around the
dollars.
country to see, and here I have in one day, 2 days, I have everything together. So for me that's quite convenient. So for me it's interesting to go here and to see what's new, what's different, what can be improved, what I can do.
What's great about this fair is that visitors can see different kinds of unique flowers and plants from all over the world. Oh my, it looks fake, but this is a real flower.
Isn't that the world's largest flower?
It is the world's largest flower, measuring 1 meter in diameter. And this is the largest rose, with their length at 15 to 20 centimeters.
Look at the size of the bulbs.
And the smallest rose with 0.5 to 1 centimeter diameter. And these are tulips, 7-color tulips, developed in the Netherlands. And this is a flower found only in Hawaii by its active volcanoes. There are flowers here from all over the world. Exotic, beautiful flowers that you can actually buy, or you can just have a look and see. Absolutely fantastic. Everything is here under one roof. The panoramic view of colorful flowers continues all throughout the outdoor exhibition area. The Aqua Flower Garden has 5 flower islands on top of the lake, and the Lohas Flower Tunnel is lined with exotic orchids and big pumpkins, almost like a secret garden. Also, if you want to enjoy the festival to its fullest, participate in free flower tours led by a horticulture expert who will give you more details about the diverse flowers. Flower Experience Zone is the most popular among family visitors as they can see, touch, and feel all kinds of different flowers.
It's great that visitors can participate in this flower experience zone. Doing this definitely makes me feel livelier. I want to take it home and hang it in my house.
Inside the fair, there is a hope tree for people to pay their respects to the victims of the ferry disaster. Many have hung yellow ribbons and written their messages of condolences. And I think it's absolutely beautiful. You can really capture the sentiment and the feelings of Korean people right now. And I'm glad that I got a chance to participate as well. It's absolutely beautiful and touching. Earlier in April, Aquaplanet Ilsan opened its doors to the public next to Lake Park and is now the country's only space housing both an aquarium and a zoo. Here, visitors can see 30,000 rare and exotic marine and land animals belonging to 220 different species.
And there's one in Jeju and other locations around the peninsula. This one's in Ilsan.
What's really special about the Ilsan Aquaplanet is that it incorporates two worlds. We have the aqua and the jungle. And I'm sure it's lots of fun. Let's go check it out.
Minjin, you got a chance to see this place.
Right, it's a beautiful place. Pretty big, too.
So first to greet me are the free wanderers of the vast ocean, the jellyfish. These creatures, along with the ever-changing light, create a fascinating show. It truly is fascinating. First thing you see when you walk in. The deep blue ocean offers a two-story view of the open waters. This 1,400-ton aquarium.
Got a little smile.
Measuring 6 meters tall and 12 meters wide, is home to sharks and stingrays, and it towers over an adult, like me. Every day, the aquarium puts on an amusing underwater performance of synchronized swimming and scuba diving to tell the story of a boy and his alien friend.
Oh, wow, synchronizing.
Because of our busy schedules, it was always difficult to make time for the family, but I think it's convenient that our family can come here to experience both the aquarium and zoo in the same place.
The ocean area is where the sea elephant Mary and South Pole's fantastic penguins show off their performance skills. Plus, art museum programs such as Docent are also offered for free to spark curiosity among visitors about different animals. The touch pool is another very popular attraction where people can personally touch and feel different sea creatures, from the blue-gray carpet shark to Dr. Fish and starfish. After the final freshwater tunnel aquarium course is complete, a different scenery of the jungle appears. Here, wild animals from Africa, including a jaguar and the ring-tailed lemur from the movie Madagascar, await visitors.
Peacocks, too.
And peacocks. Here at the Parrot Village, people can experience a special time with hundreds of birds, such as the yellow-headed Amazon parrot, by feeding and petting them.
I like the open atmosphere here where visitors can see and observe different animals up close and personal and also feed different birds.
So, head out to Ilsan to take in the beauty of endless flowers and creatures from two different worlds.
Well, flowers and fish, you can't go wrong with those two, right?
Yeah.
And then we see you brought a flower over here, so you checked out the 100 million different flowers that are over there. Is it 100 million? That's a lot of flowers. Tell us about your experience and tell us about this as well.
Sure. My experience in general, was just fantastic. Lately, I've been watching a lot of nature documentaries, nature, the uniqueness, the intricacies of different animals, of different flowers. I think it gave me a greater appreciation of what I was actually looking at. So fantastic. And the fact that, I feel sort of privileged. I got to see so many different species of flowers and animals, more than maybe the average person gets to see in a lifetime. And the amazing thing is it's all right there in Ilsan for you.
Right, and besides the International Flower Fair, there are a lot more to enjoy in Ilsan, but I hear that we can enjoy them at affordable prices.
Yes, you can get there's a special package tour where you can gain entrance to the flower festival and and the Ilsan Aqua Planet.
Okay.
And when you do them together, you get a special discounted price. And also, in addition to that, if you travel to the exhibition, the flower exhibition by subway or by bus, public transportation, you get an additional 1,000 won discount at the gate. So you want to be sure to check that out. It's great.
Discount coupons and package deals are available.
Why not, right?
Yeah, who doesn't like a discount?
And the flowers are so beautiful, and it must be a really serene experience to go there, especially in the wake of the disaster. It's a great experience, a healing experience, I'm sure.
Experience for sure.
And there's a must-see thing at the lake park as well.
At the lake park, yes. Once you're there, if you're at the lake park, you must see the music fountain, the singing fountain. You know, along with spectacular lights. There, and it performs to the backdrop of various music genres like classical, pop music, K-pop music. And the fountain puts on its grand performance for 1 hour on weekends and holidays. In April and May at 8 p.m.
You do have to check the time on the website just to make sure that they are having it, because in the wake of the ferry disaster, they're not having it as regularly as they used to.
That's right, but I do anticipate that eventually it will be up and running.
Yeah.
And as we go into the summer seasons, just a quick note, the show gets pushed back half an hour, and it will run every day rather than only on the weekends and holidays. So when it's up and running, it will be running, and it'll give you a great opportunity to check it out. And then as we proceed into the autumn season, it goes forward an hour. It starts at 7 p.m. to it starts to get darker.
Yeah, earlier on.
So it's great, and it accommodates you. It's a great place to be, and it's free.
That's the best part.
Said the most crucial information at the very end. I like that. Well, thank you, Joey, for your reports.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's just about does it for this edition of Korea Today on this May Day, on this Labor Day.
That's right. Enjoy your Labor Day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 7 a.m.
Thank you for watching.
Bye-bye.